We were trying to figure out the ways, where do we go, what do we do? And at this point, a Jewish chaplain interviewed me, or interviewed us, but interviewed me, and his questions were, what are your plans? Do you want to go back to Hungary? Do you want to try to maybe emigrate to Palestine? Or do you have any relatives around the world? And I remember that my father had two brothers and a sister living in Chicago from the early 1900s. And the only thing I said to him was that their name and Chicago. And through the efforts of some wonderful volunteers who found it, he related this to one of the Jewish agencies in New York, and they kept calling Chicago, but their name was Perlstein. Fortunately, there were not that many in the telephone book. They kept calling until one day my uncle got the phone call, and they were elated because for years they have not heard anything about the family, and finally there was a ray of hope. So through all these efforts, they were able to contact me, and they sent 2 affidavits. And now I had no idea where my brother is, but I gave all this declaration to them. So what happens when, it had to be about the end of summer. 2 young Hungarian Jewish men were combing the area because they found out that there are people from Hungary, and would my luck have it, one of the 2 men happened to be my brother's childhood friend. And naturally I asked him, have you seen my brother, have you heard of him? And he said something, it was hard to understand at that point, and that was, I saw your brother in the winter, around Christmas time, 1944, in Budapest. And I thought the whole world was taken away. I mean, how could he do that? But remember I told you earlier about being in the Hungarian military, so their life was different from ours. Their demise, shall we say, was different. So, with that in mind, the American Army was preparing a transport to ship people back free of charge to their respective countries. Now you have to keep in mind that there were not formal transportations in existence yet, there were no telephone service, there was no money. So it wasn't as easy to just pick up and travel, whatever, like the time as we are accustomed to today. So nevertheless, the army arranged this, and they escorted us all the way to Budapest.
And you were still in the town in Germany?
And in Germany, so what I have, from there. But what was interesting, some of my roommates decided to remain in Germany. So the little bit of stuff that I accumulated in these 2, 3, 4 months, I left it there, and I said, I just went for the clothing I had on, the shoes, whatever, and I said, you know what, I'm going back with this transport, I'll take my brother, and within a week we'll be back. Well, that was more or less not true, because not that true, but it didn't work out. I arrive in Hungary, I go to my hometown, I am not allowed to live in my house that we owned, because the Hungarian government allocated that house to the people, and they said, this is our home now, the government gave it to us. So I couldn't even stay in my own house, whatever comfort I could have had there. Anyhow, some friends took me in, and went to the Jewish agency, and I was told that they heard that my brother was picked up by the Russians. So here I have to give you just an itty-bitty history. When the Hungarian military was trying to escape west out of Hungary, because the Russians were invading Hungary from the east. And as they were approaching, the Hungarians were trying to get out of the country, go into Austria, Germany, wherever. The whole military units. And these Jewish boys were stranded in one section. The Russians came, And they picked up every able-bodied man, indiscriminately. You could be Jewish, you could be a Nazi, you could be German, you could be Hungarian. They didn't care. See, they needed people for their labor forces, even though it was almost post-war at that point. So he disappeared, and here I am, and what do? The business my father had, I couldn't get it back. I had no money to fight it legally. Winter is coming, and I'm still kind of hoping that maybe he'll come home. Meanwhile, the affidavit arrives. So now I'm sitting here with 2 affidavits, which at that point was worth the weight in gold.